Number 10. Cheetah. Oddly enough, Batman is a guy that seems to be pretty full of compassion and sympathy for villains at times. In the Justice League animated series, it is the respect that he shows for Cheetah when listening to her plight about how she was forced to experiment on herself due to a lack of continued funding to put towards her research, paying for proper test subjects. It's a respect and sympathy that he shows towards her that helps him to actually get free from captivity in the episode Injustice for All Part 2. Granted, his kindness towards Cheetah was likely all part of this escape plot, but it could have also come from a sincere place as well. I don't know why it can't be both. Batman is a pretty compassionate individual more often than not, so that's important to keep in mind. Number 9. Kite Man. Kite Man ended up teaming up and helping Batman during the War of Jokes and Riddles. Granted, he wasn't necessarily a super willing ally, but I think Batman still appreciated Kite Man's assistance and felt bad that he had lost his son and was put in such a tough spot between both the Riddler, Joker, and, well, himself. Not only did Batman respect this version of Kite Man more from the Prime Earth continuity, but I think fans also came to respect him more too based on his tragic origins, which also helped to give his whole Kite Man name and image more meaning. For that, he was just pretty ridiculous. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, just a quick reminder to smash that like if you love Batman as much as I love Batman, and to be kind to each other, because that's what Batman would do. Also, if you want to check out our DC list, we got that for even more DC content. Number 8. Talia al Ghul. So I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, Amanda, didn't Talia assault Batman? How can you put her on this list? Oh my gosh. But although this is an awful thing that happened, I would still say that Batman respects Talia. She is still the mother of his child, and to be honest, he kind of had a weird, bizarrely chill reaction to that whole scenario. Of course, everyone reacts to trauma and assault differently, so I am not judging him. It just seems like he moved past that whole situation pretty quickly, so that was kind of weird. Batman and Talia have had a very bizarre romantic history overall, but Batman has definitely at times both loved and respected her, and she seems to have felt the same way about him. Which is also why that whole thing that happened between them, it doesn't really make a lot of sense based on their characterization and their relationship. Batman even brought Catwoman along with him to meet Talia after Selina and he became engaged because he respected her. There is also the fact that they both have a child together, which I think also fosters some mutual respect between the two. Though I don't think Batman respects the way Talia raised Damian exactly, or the beliefs at least that she raised him with. I do think he's like, no, don't agree with that. Number 7. Two-Face. Before Two-Face was a villain, he was Harvey Dent, Gotham's successful district attorney who was all about catching and convicting criminals in an attempt to keep the citizens of Gotham safe, and in order to make the city a better overall place to live. How nice. He was an upstanding citizen until he was disfigured at the hands of Sal Maroni, who threw acid in his face. On Earth 1, Batman respected Dent so much that when he initially turned to crime as a result of becoming disfigured, he even attempted to talk Two-Face down, encouraging him to seek rehabilitation instead. Dent actually ended up being convinced by Batman too. He got plastic surgery and for a time became a law-abiding citizen once more, until his face got all scarred up again, in an explosion at least. Then he was back to being Two-Face. Number 6. Poison Ivy. While Batman might not always see eye to eye with Ivy, he definitely has some respect for her. There was a time that she escaped prison and seduced wealthy men using her pheromone powers, whose riches she would then steal. However, when Batman learned that the men were ending up dead as a result of a disease that was also slowly killing Ivy as well, he attempted to get her to surrender willingly so that she could be treated. Despite the fact that Ivy is a villain, it's also been implied on a few occasions that she might actually have genuine feelings for Batman, and he for her, to a certain extent at least. The two even worked together somewhat after Gotham was left in ruins following a severe earthquake during the events of No Man's Land. Batman even freed Poison Ivy and the orphans that she had taken in from Clayface, who had imprisoned them. And he was surprised to learn after those events that Ivy cared enough for the orphans to turn herself in when one of them was accidentally poisoned by Ivy in exchange for getting said orphan, Rose, medical attention. He was like, I guess she is still more human than plant. And then Ivy was like, actually, maybe I just want to be a human again. Anyways, it's fine. Ivy's still Ivy now, so she wasn't a human for very long. Number 5. Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul. You can say it either way, I think, but yes. Even though Roz is one of the best at being bad around, Batman can still level with Ra's. Both respect one another as adversaries and have even teamed up before. Roz is such a powerful and intelligent character that Batman can see the value of him whenever they have a common enemy, but also knows to be very diligent about sharing information with him, as Ra's can also be a deadly opponent. Ra's al Ghul, to this effect, has also almost defeated Batman on more than one occasion. There is also the element of the two at times having a somewhat familial relationship, with Talia kind of being married to Bruce in Ra's eyes. So there is that to consider as well. Though of course if Batman stands against Ra's instead of with him, then this relationship seems to quickly become null and void in his eyes. Also, for those that listen to this back and are like, why is she going between Ra's and Ra's? It's because I like Ra's al Ghul better personally when I'm saying it, but there's a lot of people out there that are Ra's fans, and so I just like to give people a little bit of both, you know what I mean? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Number 4. Clayface. For a time, Clayface was on a path of redemption and was even put on a team by Batman. Of course, this wouldn't last, and in the end he would end up becoming villainous again, but this likely will not stop Batman from trying to get through to him again in the future. After all, Batman has attempted to reach out to Clayface multiple times and convince him that he should be a hero, not a villain. Not only that, but Clayface, even before he was on Batman's assembled team, had teamed up with Batman. So it's clear that these two can sometimes get along and even come to have respect for one another as allies and partners. Number 3. Harley Quinn. I mean, currently Harley is Batman's new ally, partner, even sidekick if you will. Batman's respect for Harley likely started out from him pitying her somewhat, but then realizing that Harley was one tough cookie who did not actually need his pity. Harley Quinn in her own right has proven to be a more formidable foe even without her attachment to the Joker, when she has struck out on her own. More recently, Harley joined Batman and Catwoman in the fight against Joker during the events of Joker War. Seeing that Gotham was in serious trouble after Joker stole Bruce Wayne's millions, Harley decided to team up with the Bats in an effort to win the city back from the villain. After the war was won and Joker had escaped and seemingly disappeared once more, Harley decided to stay on the straight and narrow a little bit longer, becoming Batman's partner. But I know there's gonna be people too that are like, well then she's not a villain right now, but she's been a villain for a long time. A long time. I don't think she's full hero just yet. Same with this one. Number 2. Phantasm. Oddly enough, although Batman was surprised to find out that Phantasm was actually Andrea Beaumont, his former fiancée, this only made him respect her villainous persona, Phantasm, knowing that it was actually the woman he'd loved behind the mask, even if he couldn't agree with her methods. Andrea became Phantasm to avenge her father's death, and when the two both discovered each other's identity, they found a sort of mutual understanding between them. The major problem Batman had was that Andrea's personal vendetta was being handled in a more villainous way, with her taking an eye for an eye approach against those who had caused her father so much pain, and were ultimately responsible for his demise. She was looking to kill those involved, which of course went against Batman's beliefs and his no-kill rule, went against his code, his credence if you will. However, in the end Andrea got away, and it seemed as though Batman was kind of willing to allow her to disappear following her escape. Number 1. Catwoman. We can't really call Catwoman a villain now, I don't think, but it is important to acknowledge that's how she started out in the comics. I actually think Batman's respect helped to bring Selina around and really inspired her to work on a full-on reform for herself, which now has her more aligned with the heroic lifestyle. Although, she still has been known to pull off a caper or two here and there. And even Penguin more recently still considered Catwoman to be one of the villains when he spirited her away to his underground lair to lay low while Joker destroyed the Gotham above. Catwoman and Batman I think both make the other question their identity and morals in a way that makes them each better people as time goes on. It's why they're so great together, whether it be romantically or just in terms of a kick-ass team up. Time for an honorable mention. We talk a lot about the Joker on this channel, and to be honest, I'm not sure that Batman respects him most of the time. But it is something that I still wanted to bring up because I'm sure there's a lot of Joker fans out there that are like, but what about Joker? What about Joker? Well, we did learn in the 3 Jokers story that Batman at least seems to respect the man that the Joker used to be, enough to make sure that his family is safe, and respects them enough to keep them safe from the villain. There have also been a few times that the Joker was made sane, or at least least temporarily appeared sane. And during some of those times, Batman has even been shown to sympathize with the villain. For example, in Brave and the Bold issue 191, when the two team up together after Joker is made sane through his emotions, as he grieves the supposed death of his cohort and his friend in crime, the Penguin. They together then sleuth out the Penguin faked his death as part of a heist, and Batman even congratulates Joker on a job well done. He congratulates him. Wow. Number 10. Batmite. Although Batman might often declare that he finds Batmite to be a nuisance, in some respects he must admire the heroic imp-like creature. Batmite was implied to be the image taken by the manifestation of Batman's rational mind. Batmite isn't really so much a villain as he is a trickster who often means well but instead brings about chaos wherever he goes. He has both done much ill and much good for Batman and the Bat family in the past. However, Batman usually was not one to appreciate even the good that Batmite did, as it was often part of Batmite attempting to fix his own wrongdoings. Still, in some regards, Batman must see that Batmite really is just a big fan that means well, based on his mind's manifestation, or potentially Batmite was actually created or resides in Batman's imagination, which should also in theory lead him to getting some respect. Well, at least you'd think. I would respect things that I created out of my own imagination. Number 9. Arkham Knight. While Astrid Arkham hasn't been a major player in the comics yet, she did make a pretty memorable appearance in the Future State line, and it inspired me to go back and take a look at her earlier appearance in the main continuity in Detective Comics. Batman hasn't had a ton of time to really get to know and cross paths with Arkham Knight as she appears in the comics, but it seems based on his reactions and his fight with her in Detective Comics issues 1005 that he sees her as a sympathetic figure. She was basically lied to and in essence kind of brainwashed against Batman, with her whole life and the people and friends that she made growing up at Arkham making her see Batman as Gotham's main villain as opposed to its savior. Batman believes that Astrid is just misguided, and I bet he even has considered that were her perspective shifted, she could possibly make a strong ally. I personally would love to see a team up with Arkham Knight and Batman, I don't know about you. Astrid is a formidable foe who does what she does because she sees herself as the hero of Gotham who must defeat Batman in order to save the city and save its people. Sometimes you gotta save people by blinding them, you know what I mean? It's all in a hero's work, I guess. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want more bad lists, if you want to talk more about Batman villains, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. And check out our Batman playlist for even more Bat videos. Is that a thing people say? Now it's a thing. Number 8. DEADSHOT. These two teamed up together after DEADSHOT was contracted to kill Bruce Wayne, with his daughter being held hostage as leverage to make sure he completed that contract. Instead of doing so though, DEADSHOT decided to try and team up with Batman to save his daughter. Aw, I love it. DEADSHOT even promised Batman that he would not kill anyone during the rescue mission. And later, when he was forced to break his promise due to his daughter's life being in immediate danger, DEADSHOT surrendered to Batman. He asked Batman to make sure his daughter was safe and actually agreed to go to jail for breaking his promise and killing someone. DEADSHOT may be a lot of things, but he is also an honorable man, and it is because of this that he earned Batman's respect. I admire that. I love that he's like, I broke the promise, I killed someone, I'll go to jail. That's only fair. Number 7. Katana. Katana was a member of Black Lightning's Outsiders team, and through them ended up teaming up with Batman in the New 52 continuity. But way before that, when she went by a slightly different name as the New Earth version of the character, she was also part of the original Batman and the Outsiders team in volume number 1 of the series. Despite being a member of the Suicide Squad, Katana has mostly been a good or neutral figure. But it's her ties to the Suicide Squad, a team made up of villains primarily for the most part, that allows us to loosely consider her a villain for this list's sake. Okay, I know Katana's not a villain. I know you're all gonna come and you're all gonna say, Katana's not a villain, she's a really good person. I agree with you, but you know, she's at least an anti-hero. She kills people, right? Like, can we at least give her that? So yes, as I said, Katana is good, but she's not against killing people, and at the very least, that would make her an anti-hero. But at the end of the day, she always aims to do what's right and has a ton of honor. Add in that she's a badass who is extremely skilled when it comes to sword fighting and martial arts, having been trained in the ways of a samurai, and it's easy to see how she earned Batman's respect. The only reason she's ranked so low on this list is because, well, she's really more of a hero than a villain most days. I need to just do a Katana list. I just think she's so cool. Have we done a list on her before? I don't know. We need to do that if that hasn't happened. Number 6. Deathstroke. Despite everything that Slade Wilson has done to Batman and the Bat family in the past, Batman still respects the guy. Why? Well, because Deathstroke is really good at what he does, and that Batman can respect. Now when it comes to Deathstroke's work, what he gets done as a mercenary and hired assassin, Batman can't really get behind that as much. So although these two usually end up at odds with one another, they typically move to defeat each other without any fatalities. Now I'm just thinking of Mortal Kombat. At the end of the day, if Batman could figure out a way to bring Wilson over to the good side, he would do so in a heartbeat. Deathstroke is an amazingly skilled fighter. Batman just wishes he would give up the hired killer life. Deathstroke, on the other hand, also admires Batman, but wishes, he'd stop trying to interfere in all his business. He's just trying to do his job, If these two could see eye to eye, and on the rare occasion that they do see eye to eye, they'd make a strong team. Number 5. Bane. Bane is one of those villains that Batman can actually level with. Despite the fact that Bane is a villain who is so iconically known for his defeat of Batman, I also think that part of Batman's respect for Bane plays into the fact that Bane is one of the few villains that was able to defeat him. Batman respects Bane's strength, and I think also sympathizes with the fact that Bane struggled all throughout his youth, growing up in a harsh prison environment ever since he was little, just because of the crimes of his father. Not very fair. Bane believes in making things better for his country, and even almost succeeded in helping his nation politically. He also respects Batman back in his own way, attempting to break Batman a few years ago, but this time with the intention of building him back up. Like, breaking him to make him stronger. You know what I mean? If you love someone, sometimes you gotta break their back and then kill their butler and, make sure they don't get married. I don't know, it's a weird relationship. Number 4. Red Hood. Red Hood is a villain that Batman kind of has to respect, since he was once his young protege Robin. Jason Todd may go on to become a villain, but even though Batman may not agree with his methods, there is still a lot there for Batman to admire and respect in him. Jason Todd grows up to be a masterful combatant, but besides that, he is also deep down still that headstrong youth that Batman decided to take under his wing. When it comes to Batman's feelings about Jason Todd and Red Hood, there is a lot of pride and a lot of guilt mixed together there, as Batman feels responsible for Jason going down that darker path, but can also appreciate at times the man that Jason Todd has grown into today, especially as while he was once a villain, he's more an anti-hero now, and continuously works towards redemption as he wrestles with his morals and his past. Number 3. AZREAL. Despite the fact that AZREAL ended up as a villain, Jean-Paul Valley was originally one of the first folks that Batman thought to turn to after Bane broke his back, leaving him unable to take up the mantle of Batman. In the end, of course, this would be a mistake, and Batman would end up having to fight and defeat him in order to get the title and the mantle back, but Batman didn't choose him because he had no one else to turn to. He initially thought that AZREAL would make a good replacement because he respected him so much. It just turns out that wasn't a great call, you know what I mean? Number 2. Mr. Freeze. You all thought that I forgot Mr. Freeze when I did my part 1 of this list, but no, I did not forget my boy Freezy. I was just saving him for the potential part 2 that is now here. Also, I know no one calls Mr. Freeze Freezy, but I want it to be a thing, so can we make it a thing? The good news is that me saving him for this list means that he gets to qualify for a top spot. Yay! Mr. Freeze obviously has Batman's respect because of the why behind his criminal plots and his plans, the most memorable of which, and the one we're of course talking about here, being his wife Nora. Nora Freeze is the whole reason that Mr. Freeze commits crimes. It's all to try and raise enough money to fund his research to find a cure for the life-threatening disease she suffers from. Mr. Freeze hopes to find a cure and then thaw his wife, who he cryogenically froze to keep her alive, which resulted in the accident that granted him his unique physiology and powers. In the animated universe, although Batman apprehends Mr. Freeze and gets him sent to Arkham Asylum, he also helps to get Ferris Boyle arrested for his crimes, whom Freeze wanted revenge on, blaming him for Nora's ongoing tragic fate. And in the film Batman and Robin, after defeating Mr. Freeze, Batman reveals to him that they managed to stabilize his wife Nora after Poison Ivy attempted to kill her, and he even promises to move Nora to Arkham, where Freeze will be held, so he can continue his research, after Freeze helps him with a cure for Alfred. I like that he appeals to his better nature, because Batman's like, look, Mr. Freeze, you weren't always a bad dude, you're kind of a cool guy, we can figure this out. Also, that whole part where he takes a knee and then you think he's gonna like ask him to marry him. I don't know if I was the only person that got that feeling in that movie, but this feels like a marriage proposal thing. Does anybody ship Batman and Mr. Freeze? Let me know in the comments below. Number 1. Lady Shiva. Lady Shiva almost instantly earned the respect of Batman through proving herself a formidable foe and one that could handily beat the hero, if given the chance of course. It was Lady Shiva that Bruce Wayne turned to after his back had been broken by Bane, and he needed to regain his strength in order to return to Gotham and take back the mantle of Batman. Lady Shiva agreed to help train Bruce, which shows that despite the fact that these two have opposing alignments, that they both respect one another. Number 10. Nightwing. Also known as Dick Grayson. Dick was Batman's first Robin, belonging to a circus family called the Flying Graysons. After the death of his parents, Dick became the ward of Bruce Wayne and adopted the mantle of Robin as Batman's sidekick. The two went on many crime-fighting adventures together, and no matter what version of these two you're looking at, they're pretty much always depicted as being inseparable. Batman and Dick have a father-son relationship that is explored throughout all the DC series, cartoons, and films they are in. After leading the Teen Titans, Dick decides to become his own superhero and adopts the name Nightwing. Striking out on his own, Nightwing shares a lot of Batman's morals. Although the two don't always see eye to eye, in the aftermath of the Prodigal Son series, Batman reveals to Dick that when he first left Gotham, he didn't pick Dick to take his place as Batman due to the fact that he respected Dick and his independence. Number 9. The Flash. Barry Allen. Known to be the fastest man alive, Barry Allen, as the Flash, is also one of the founding members of the Justice League. Although Batman and the Flash have teamed up many times with other members of the Justice League, they have also had a few adventures of their own. For these moments, we have to go back in comic history. We can see them team up in some old issues of The Brave and the Bold, and more recently see their bond deepen in Flashpoint, where the Flash travels to an alternate timeline where Batman's dad is still alive. He even brings Batman back a letter from his dad. Number 8. Zatanna Zatara. Zatanna is a skilled stage magician and also a famous sorceress. She has been a member of the Justice League and Sentinels of Magic. Batman and Zatanna have been friends since childhood, and were also at one point romantically linked. Bruce trusted and respected Zatanna. He's occasionally depicted teaming up with her and coming to her for help. In the animated series, he specifically comes to her when looking for assistance when Wonder Woman is transformed into a pig. She promises to help him and Diana in any way she can. Currently, the two are on a bit of rocky ground, as it is revealed in DC's Identity Crisis that Zatanna actually wiped Batman's memory when he tried to stop her from wiping the memory of the supervillain Dr. Light. However, he still calls on her for assistance and is even back to referring to her by her nickname Z. This is a feat in and of itself. After all, it is one thing to lose the Dark Knight's trust, but I imagine winning back the Dark Knight's trust could only be done if you are held in the highest regards. Number 7. Harvey Dent. I know what you're thinking. Harvey Dent, as in Two-Face? Are you crazy, Amanda? But I'm not talking about Two-Face, I'm talking about Harvey Dent. Let's not forget about the awesome Nolan Brothers films, which happens to be my second favorite film version of the Bat. In these films, we get a really good look at Harvey Dent before he became Two-Face. This is Harvey Dent, DA of Gotham City. And although he isn't a formal superhero, I would argue that being DA of Gotham City is almost as hard, if not harder, for all the bad guys he's putting away. He should get an honorary hero status. In fact, in the Dark Knight film, Bruce Wayne and Harvey Dent end up having dinner together, and as a result of their conversation, and because of Batman's faith in and respect for Dent, Wayne offers to throw him a fundraiser for his future re-election. Number 6. Daredevil. Daredevil is a Marvel superhero of his own creation, much like Batman. Daredevil, also known as Matt Murdock, grows up with his dad. After an accident that leaves him blind but gives him radar-like senses, he is trained by Stick. His father, who is a boxer, ends up dying after not losing to what was supposed to be a fixed boxing match. As a result of winning the fight, his dad is shot by his own promoter who had ordered him to take the dive. After his father's death, Murdock continues to be trained by Stick and seeks revenge on those that had killed his father, which he does eventually get. Later, he grows up to be a lawyer and actually crosses paths frequently with our number 7 on this list, Harvey Dent. This is revealed to us in the crossover comic Daredevil / Batman, Eye for an Eye. Batman and Daredevil having similar moral codes and stories, it does not surprise me that these two would team up together. In this comic, it is obvious that they trust and respect one another when they team up to take down Two-Face and Mr. Hyde. Number 5. Talia al Ghul. Talia grows up as Ra al Ghul's daughter. Although Ghul doesn't usually think much of women, it becomes apparent that Talia is the most skilled of his children. She eventually becomes his right hand. She has an excellent head for business, is highly intelligent, and a trained assassin. Although she is usually seen as a villain, Batman still respects her because he loves her. When he first met her, he saved her from the death of the hands of the League of Assassins. Later, she ends up killing the League of Assassins in order to save Batman's life. The two help each other here and there, and Talia appears to be fiercely loyal to Batman. When Damian, Batman and Talia's son, appears on Batman's doorstep, Batman isn't sure if this is his son, but instead of refusing Talia, he just takes Damian in. Number 4. Catwoman, Selina Kyle. Catwoman might not always be playing for the good guys, but regardless, you cannot deny that her and Batman share a connection. Batman trusts her so much, the two were recently engaged to be married. Catwoman even stole a $28,000 wedding dress. It's amazing to think, but this dynamic duo have been starring together since the 1940s. Although the wedding didn't end up happening, we can always think back to that time Anne Hathaway's Selina Kyle and Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne made it work. Number 3. Batgirl, Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon is Commissioner Jim Gordon's daughter. She eventually joins Dick and Bruce as Batgirl. Batgirl eventually retires from fighting crime, but ends up becoming paralyzed when the Joker shoots her in the back. Although at first very depressed, she eventually overcomes her depression and takes up the name Oracle, creating a super powerful computer system which she uses in tandem with a comm system to help Batman and Robin fight crime from home. A few years ago, she miraculously recovered from her injuries and is back to fighting crime once more. She has always been portrayed as having a father-daughter relationship with Batman in the comics, though there are some different things happening with her relationship to Batman in the animated series, and now in the DC Comics series Batman the Killing Joke. You can just Google that for yourself. Number 2. Wonder Woman. Also known as Diana of Themyscira, Wonder Woman is a member of the Justice League and an Amazonian princess. She has super strength, speed, and is often armed with her lasso of truth and magic gauntlets. She often comes to Batman's rescue in the comics, and Batman often comes to hers. The two have a long-standing on and off romantic relationship as well, and their love for each other, I think, is also a sign of that mutual respect. Number 1. Superman. Also known as Clark Kent. Superman is probably one of the strongest guys in the DC universe. So strong that I think it sometimes makes it hard for us to relate to the character on screen. Superman, born as Kal-El, is a Kryptonian from the planet Krypton, and was sent to the planet Earth by his parents as a last-ditch effort to save the poor baby. He grows up on Earth with his adoptive parents and is raised like a normal country human boy. These two are probably the best of friends in the comics. Batman even makes Superman the best man at his wedding to Catwoman, which, as I mentioned earlier, sadly does not happen. There are constant examples in the intense mutual respect in the comics, from them admiring each other's strengths and abilities to reaching out to each other in times of need. If you don't believe me, just check out this photo. Okay, so that may have never happened, but hey, I'd ship it. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to click that thumbs up, tap that subscribe, and let me know who you think Batman respects the most in the comments below, superhero or otherwise. I'm Amanda McKnight, this is Top 10 Nerd, and until we meet again, you stay nerdy, YouTube.